Thank you everyone so much for joining us today. It's great to be back for another season of Evenings for Educators. I've truly missed seeing you all and experiencing your creativity in the workshops. My name is Laura Schilling. I am the coordinator for teacher programs at LACMA. I'm a white woman with curly blonde hair. I have a fuzzy gray sweater on today that feels especially good in this windy weather. I'm feeling like fall is here and I'm very excited about it. And I'm just so pleased to welcome you to Evenings for Educators for the 2021-2022 school year. Evenings for Educators is LACMA's oldest teacher professional development program. This is its 41st year, if you can believe it. And the program really focuses on developing K-12 teachers' familiarity and skill in art appreciation, hands-on art making, and arts integration. For the first program of the school year, we wanted to revisit our focus on social emotional learning from last October and provide you with additional resources for supporting your students creatively at this time, which in some ways is a time of transition and change, and then in others feels very much like a continuation of the same challenges we have faced since early 2020. Working with art teacher Sydney Snyder, today's speaker, we identified resilience as a core capability that can help students both process and move on from past events in a healthy way and weather the challenges they are currently facing. Resilience can be developed and strengthened through multiple channels, including art. Art provides a space for self-reflection, processing difficult emotions, and envisioning better futures. And it engages the part of the brain that reduces stress, enhances positive emotions, and builds connections between self and others. We are excited and grateful to be able to dig into this topic with you this week and next. And just a reminder for LAUSD teachers and others who are seeking professional development credit, this is an LAUSD salary point course. So if you're interested in participating for credit, you'll just need to attend 15 of the 16 hours of programming we're offering this year. And after each virtual event, there will be a survey link shared in the chat with space at the bottom to fill in your contact information. This is how we keep track of folks, so make sure you fill that out. We won't know that you came unless you fill out that portion of the survey. And if you'd like professional development credit and not the full salary point, that's totally fine too. Just also fill out those surveys and we'll just log all of your hours and send you a letter at the end of the year. And if you have any other questions about that, or if I went really quickly, go ahead and send me a private message later on this evening and we can talk more about it. Our major accessibility feature today is live captioning. If you would like to access live captions throughout the presentation, please click live transcript at the bottom of your Zoom toolbar and then click show subtitle. My colleague Susie Castillo is also here providing tech support today. So if you have any issues accessing the captions or any tech related questions, please send her a private message. Susie, do you want to come on camera real quick and just say hello so folks know who you are?
Hello, everyone. It's kind of hard to see me with this bright light coming in through the window, but I'm Susie. I'm a fair-skinned Latina woman, have dark, short hair, round glasses. And if you have any questions, just shoot me a message and I'll do my best to help.
Thank you so much, Susie. We really appreciate having you behind the scenes, making sure everything runs smoothly. So if you haven't done so already, I noticed a lot of people have already. Take a moment to introduce yourselves briefly in the chat. Let us know just how you're doing today and provide an acknowledgement of the native lands you are on. And I'd like to share an acknowledgement from LACMA, which is on the next slide. LACMA respectfully acknowledges that the lands on which our museum is built and the region that we serve is the ancestral and unceded territories of the Gabrielino Tangva, Gabrielino Quiche, Fernandeño Tataviam, and Ventureño Chumash peoples. Los Angeles County has been and is home to many indigenous peoples. And in this vein and in celebrating Indigenous Peoples Day, I want to share an artwork that is currently at LACMA that you can experience in a little bit of an unconventional way. You do have to go to LACMA's campus, but you won't see it right away. In order to see it, you have to download a unique Snapchat lens to make this artwork appear. And the work is by local Indigenous artist Mercedes Dorame, and it is called Portal for Tovangar. And I have just a short video here that I'd love to share with you all, in which Dorame talks more about her work.
I think AR has a potential to impact the art world in the way that it gives a level of accessibility that is not tied to a specific place. Oweshkuneha, Netwanya ne Mercedes Dorame, Komikrave Guashna, Itovanga, I Oweshkuneha. My name is Mercedes Dorame. I'm from Los Angeles, also known as Tovangar. I'm the artist behind the lens Portal for Tovangar. What is the lens that I'm asking people to see through in order to engage with these ideas and the Tonga presence in the city? I really wanted that kind of peripheral sound and experience to be part of it. And it's also to remember the land that we are all on, the land that we're connected to, and to remember the continuum of presence of the Native people in the space. It allows for the dislocation of the physical laws that we operate in. I liked being able to levitate stones into the air and have these salt crystals floating upwards. I want this project to be an expansion of perception, an expansion of experience, and an expansion of imagination.
Amazing, thank you so much. What always resonates with me in that video is when she talks about exploring this continuum of presence of Native people in this place. And that's, I think, something important for us to remember and to hold on to as we move forward. So next I want to talk about some of our upcoming programs. We really believe that one of the best ways we can support teachers, support students throughout LA County is by supporting you, their teachers. You are the ones who open up space for them to be creative and expressive. You help them feel seen and valued, and you show them that art is an essential part of our lives and what makes us human. We're just so grateful for the work you do, and we're committed to supporting you with resources and programs that engage, challenge, and inspire. So with that, I want to introduce our fall programs, which I'm very excited about. For the next 2 weeks, as you'll see on the slide, we're going to be focusing on art resilience and healing. There are 3 hands-on art making workshops with LACMA teaching artists taking place after Sydney's presentation tonight, and you can still sign up for all of them. So Susie is putting a link in the chat to a document that is like our master document for the evening, with all of the registration links, all of the resources, a sign up for our mailing list, a promo code to visit the museum for you and a guest, information about Mercedes Dorame, the artist we just heard from. So open up that document, take a look at it later. There's a whole lot of goodies in there for you, but do take some time to register for the upcoming workshops. The first one is going to be this Thursday at 5 o'clock. And next, I want to talk about something really exciting. Some of you may already know this, some may not, but the Obama portraits are coming to Los Angeles. They will be on view at LACMA from November 7th to January 2nd, alongside Black American Portraits, which is an exhibition drawn largely from LACMA's permanent collection that chronicles the ways in which Black Americans have used portraiture to envision themselves in their own eyes, countering a visual culture that often demonizes Blackness and fetishizes the spectacle of Black pain. These images center love, abundance, family, community, and exuberance. And we have a couple images from that show on the next slide. That exhibition is up until April, so you have a lot of time to see it. However, the Obama portraits will be gone before we know it, so we want to make sure that you have a chance to see them. And we are going to be offering a free open house event for teachers and select partner schools after hours on Tuesday, December 7th. This is not a public event and will only be advertised via email. So if you're not on our teacher mailing list already, make sure you sign up for it. And that is on that document that Susie's been sharing. The hours of the event are 6:30 to 9 p.m. And this is just a fantastic opportunity to come and see the portraits with your peers. So make sure to stay tuned for that. Like I said, all communications will be going out for email. There will not be any advertising on our website about this special opportunity. And we're also planning some great programs for you around the Obama Portraits and Black American Portraits exhibitions. The first is a special workshop for teachers led by educators from the National Portrait Gallery in Washington, D.C., specifically on the Obama portraits. In this workshop, you will learn how to interpret the portraits and make connections to your curriculum. You can sign up via the link in the document Susie shared. Oh, I think the screen share might have just ended. Or you can go to the teacher programs page, which is listed on the slide, which we can no longer see. Hopefully we'll get the slide share going up in a minute.
I think Sydney disconnected.
Oh, Sydney got disconnected. Okay. All right, well, we'll continue without it. We have another Educator Speaker Series event on November 10th. At that time, we'll be joined by artist and educator Ada Pinkston, who will talk about her LACMA Snapchat project on historic Angelino Biddy Mason, who was a Black woman who arrived in California as an enslaved person in 1851, subsequently petitioned for and won her freedom and became an important community leader in late 19th century LA. The Black American Portraits exhibition features 2 portraits of Biddy Mason, including a still from Pinkston's Snapchat series. And finally, closing out our suite of programs on these landmark exhibitions, the December Evenings for Educators program will take a close look at the 2 exhibitions with a lecture by Dr. Liz Andrews and 2 hands-on workshops with LACMA teaching artists. If you're seeking salary point or professional development credit, and you attend the December 7th open house event that I previously mentioned, you are eligible to receive an hour of credit, and we'll have a station for you to sign in at the event. So that open house event is technically, in a way, part of Evenings for Educators, but it's happening in person, whereas everything else is happening virtually. This is kind of our slow transition back into doing in-person programming. I would love to introduce our fantastic speaker for this program, Sydney Snyder. She is a multidisciplinary artist and art educator in Los Angeles. This is her 10th year of teaching, and I just lost my window. In a school, 10th year of teaching art in a school setting. Sydney works with students of all intellectual and physical abilities at an inclusive model charter. In addition to facilitating adaptive art practices to ensure art is accessible to all her students, Sydney oversees a TAB, Teaching for Artistic Behavior studio, in which students have access to a wide variety of mediums and can create art about any subject they choose while learning the studio habits of mind. She also works as a co-conspirator at Adding Voices with founder Flavia Zuñiga-West, creating culturally responsive curriculum resources, editing newsletters, and organizing events. I'm going to turn it over to you now, Sydney.
Thank you so much, Laura, for that introduction and for your collaboration over the last couple of months. My name is Sydney. I am a fair-skinned white woman with medium-length brown hair and like a super colorful background with yarn and art and a colorful shirt. Okay. All right, so some of you have done this already, I think, but if you haven't, in the chat, please share your name, pronouns, what subject you teach, and grade levels if you are a teacher. And I think many of you already did the geographic location that you're joining us from. While you share that, if you haven't already, I just want to thank everyone for joining us on a Tuesday evening. It means a lot to me, and I saw that there are a ton of like parents from my school on here and friends, and yeah, I'm just really grateful. How many people, I just want to kind of gauge, how many people on here are not teachers? Just so I can kind of address everyone. Okay, we have some admin, lots of teachers, service provider, museum educator, coordinator, parent. Okay, awesome. Okay, so lots of teachers, some parents and administrators and service providers and coordinators. Great. Thank you so much. So our evening tonight, we're going to do a check-in and a mindfulness activity to kind of transition us into this time together. And then we'll start talking about resilience and do an activity together. I'm going to ask you to get creative for 5 whole minutes. So if you have any kind of like art supplies or writing materials nearby, you might want to grab those now. And it could be like Play-Doh that you grab from your child. It really can be anything. And then I'm going to share some artwork from LACMA's collection that I think can help introduce the topic of resilience to your students or your children. And then share with you a creative activity. And then we'll do some breakout room activity and a Q&A. I like to do a community Q&A where we ask each other questions. I never want to present myself as like an authority on a subject. So I think we all have a lot to share and a lot to learn here, including me. Okay. So I want to share with you something that my students asked for during distance learning when we were doing community agreements together. They taught me about something called Fist to 5. And I think there might be something like this that's different at my school. So at my school, we do Fist to 5, fist being like worst day of your life. You're really in bad shape. 5, like you're fabulous. And my students let me know that this was something they needed during distance learning. Later in the presentation, I'm going to share some data with you about the frequency with which high school students said their teachers checked in with them to see how they're doing, but I'm going to give you a heads up, it's not often. So I'm grateful that my students made this request and let me know what they needed, so I could, kind of facilitate that activity in my classroom on a regular basis. So we are going to do Fist to 5 together on Jamboard. We're going to be using Jamboard a lot tonight. So I think there's going to be a link that appears in the chat for you. And when you open this, you are going to click this button to add a sticky note with your response from 0 to 5. So instead of holding up your hand, because we have a lot of people here, we're just going to do a sticky note. The first, I think, 3 pages of the Jamboard are this like template. So you can navigate to any one of those 3 pages to share. And this is just a check-in, so I know, and we know how everyone's coming to this event today. So I'm going to head over to the Jamboard and just kind of see how people are doing. I'll add my own. And have you all received a link to access the Jamboard? Yes, okay, cool. And you're just doing a number from 0 to 5 on a sticky note.
Hey, Sydney.
Mm-hmm.
I'm seeing in the chat that it's view only for some people.
Oh, I have this setting. Let me double check that. I have anyone on the internet can view. Let me try putting a link in the chat. I don't know if it's a different link. Okay, I've never done this with a ton of people. Well, I'm going to be flexible and say, let's do it in the chat, 0 to 5. How's everyone doing? I see a lot of 3s and 4s. And what I tell my students is if we hear from someone or you see someone is a 0 or a 1, we know to give that person extra love and hopefully help brighten their day. And you can be honest. It's okay if you're like a 1 right now. Cool. Thank you all so much for sharing. I'll share mine since you were probably not able to see it on the Jamboard. I have like a big Jamboard activity later, so we're going to have to improvise, but I think we can all figure out a solution together when we get to that part. Okay. So I wanted to start with this quote. This is actually my phone screen background. It says, Today, I am choosing to be mindful about the things I give energy to. And that's a quote from a piece of artwork by Morgan Harper Nichols. So I acknowledge that we're all at different places tonight. We saw that in the chat, but I invite you to play around with this idea yourselves for the rest of our time together. For me, it's also been really helpful to enter the workplace each day with this in mind and then remind myself throughout the day, which is why I have it as my phone screen background. Okay, so as I mentioned, I do community agreements with my students. I always do these with my middle school students, but because I see my lower school students, I'm a TK through 8th grade teacher, but because I see my lower school students so infrequently, I usually do this more as an intervention, but ideally I do it with all of them. So how can we ensure this evening together tonight is productive and fruitful for all in attendance? Please put some ideas for norms or agreements in the chat. Ooh, thank you. Okay, I just changed it to edit. I can't believe I made such a rookie mistake because I do this with my students so often. So you might be able to add to the Jamboard now. We still might run into that limitation with the numbers. Okay, let's see what kind of agreements we have. Be present, respect the contributions of our colleagues, be respectful, engaged. Oh, use reactions to respond in addition to voice or chat responses. I love that. So you can use like the little emoji responses. Interactive participation, open to new ideas, open to learning and listening, be kind and respectful, minimize multitasking. Yeah. Participate as much as possible. Kind and compassionate, attentive. Yeah, so a lot of us are having similar ideas. Can I get some kind of acknowledgement from everyone that we can agree to this? And that can be like a yes or a thumbs up, or you can do those emoji reactions if you like that. Extend grace. Love that. Cool. Thank you. Okay, so we're actually going to do a meditation to help us kind of transition into this space. This isn't something I regularly do. I'm not like a professional in this sense, but it's a meditation someone shared with me recently that I found really helpful. So we're going to try it. And if this is uncomfortable for you, we're going to check in afterward, and that's okay. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Okay. So find a comfortable meditation position, either sitting on a cushion on the floor, on a chair, or even on your bed. Sit comfortably with shoulders relaxed. Let your hands rest in your lap and gently close your eyes. And if you're not comfortable closing your eyes, you can find something in front of you and have like a soft focus on it. So let's take 3 deep, slow breaths to begin. Become aware of your body sitting here. Notice the sense of contact between your body and the surface beneath you. Notice the weight of your body. Notice what's touching your skin. Now let's consider a metaphor. Within the strong, turbulent winds of a hurricane, the center of the hurricane, the eye, is quiet. There is no wind and no movement there. For a moment, picture the idea in your mind. Visualize the strong, turbulent winds of a hurricane and the inner core that is peaceful and quiet. Let's see if you can become like the center of the hurricane. Your current circumstances, your thoughts, your feelings, and the sensations throughout your body can be compared to the winds of a hurricane. It is possible for you to let go of all these things for a moment so that you are no longer taking part in them, like the center of the hurricane is not taking part in the turbulent surrounding winds. To do this, start by focusing on your breath. Simply breathe in and breathe out. Focus inward. Just like the eye is deep within the hurricane, your eye is deep within you. Use your breath to connect to this part of you. Simply breathe in and breathe out. Stay connected to your breath. If anything stressful happens in this moment, such as negative thoughts, unpleasant feelings or memories, annoying sounds, try to look at them as if they are the turbulent wind of the hurricane, whirling around, continually changing, unpredictable in nature. Notice that you are not them. You are the silent center of the hurricane, the part that is peaceful despite what is happening around you. You are not reacting, you are simply observing. Like the wind of the hurricane, these experiences are constantly moving and changing. These experiences are out of your control. You, on the other hand, are stable. You are not moving or being carried away by them. As you are breathing, notice how you move more and more toward the center of the hurricane, toward the eye. Just like the turbulent wind of the hurricane, your thoughts, your feelings, and whatever is happening outside yourself is still going on, but you are no longer part of it. You have control of yourself in the eye. You are in a safe, peaceful place, breathing in, breathing out. As you sit here, connected to your eye, notice whatever arises. Notice the wind of the hurricane, but do not participate. You can coexist with a storm that rages outside of you. Stay in the eye. You are safe. You have the strength to protect against the elements. Notice thoughts, notice feelings, notice sensations. Continue to watch the ever-changing nature of the wind inside and outside you. Watch from a distance with curiosity and without judgment, without reacting to what you see. No matter how intense or bad the hurricane gets, the eye is always centered, calm, and at ease. Even the most turbulent hurricane cannot hurt or harm the eye. The eye is safe. Whenever you feel you need to restore peace, use your breath to connect to the silent part of yourself. Just breathe in and breathe out. It may help to visualize the hurricane with yourself in the center. It can be difficult to see the eye of the hurricane at times, and sometimes we forget the eye is there. However, it is always there. If we examine closely enough, even the strongest, darkest hurricane, sooner or later we'll see the eye, centered and constant. You are centered and constant. Now, when you feel ready, slowly open your eyes. So I'd like to check in again. I'm hoping we can access the Jamboard now, but I know everyone might not be able to, so we can do this in the chat. I'd just like to know how everyone's doing. Another fist to 5 check-in. And I have no expectation, so I'm not like banking on people being a 5 if they were a 2 before. Cool. Thank you so much for participating and sharing. Okay. So I wanted to share, if you're into meditation, you might already be familiar with some of these, but I wanted to share some resources. There are some free ones here, including Insight Timer and Exhale. Exhale is one of 3 apps on here that I'm including that are created by people of color for people of color. Yoga with Adrienne is a series of free yoga videos on YouTube. I have Headspace, Calm, and then Liberate and Shine are membership, but I think there's some free features on Shine, and there's financial assistance available on Liberate if the monthly or annual membership fee is not accessible to you. Okay, so the reason for all that, if you take nothing else away from this presentation, I'd love for you to walk away with the reminder that nothing is more important than your health, nothing, period. And mental health is health. I shared this on my Instagram this past weekend. If you're crying every day after work, and it doesn't have to be that extreme, you are sick. Please take a sick day or days, or you can't do your job. You cannot pour from an empty cup. I'm sure you've noticed, but it's really hard to be a great teacher when you're rebel. And you have to let go of the idea of a sub shortage and the pressure to push through. They'll figure it out because they have to. This may sound really preachy, but I'm speaking from experience here. At the start of this school year, I went on medical leave for the first 6 weeks of school due to work-related stress and anxiety. That was a little scary to say. I really believe that if we don't start taking time off when we need it, many of us won't remain in this profession after this year. So, what is one thing, big or small, you are going to do to take care of yourself tonight? And this should be realistic. It doesn't need to be a big thing. My thing is going to be to take a shower. And you can share in the chat if you'd like, or just make a commitment to yourself. Ooh, there are some good ideas in the chat though. So if you need ideas, I see go to bed early, drink warm tea, go on a walk, read a book. And I'm going to remind you at the end that you made this commitment. And then what is one healthy boundary you'd like to work on maintaining at work? And bonus points if you share this question in your answer with a friend at work for accountability. Boundaries are really important right now. Learn to say no. That was a game changer for me. No emails after 6 p.m. also a game changer. There's an app called Quiet for Gmail that you can put on your phone, and you can set times that your Gmail syncs if your school uses Gmail. So you can set it just to your school day if you want. That's been great for me. Saying no. Thank you all so much for sharing. Okay, so on to resilience, the reason we're all here. So we're just going to start with a question. What does resilience mean? What does it mean to you personally? What role has it played in your life? And I'm going to ask you to do something that some people may be uncomfortable with, but I'm going to ask you to take 5 minutes to draw, write, sculpt, collage, whatever words or images come to mind for you when you think of resilience and think of your own experience with that word. So I'm going to start a timer in case that's helpful for people. Okay. And then at the end, you'll have a chance to share your work if you'd like. We have a little less than a minute left of that 5 minutes. There's some beautiful ideas in the chat if you're done and you want to check that out. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing. And if you don't have your screen on gallery view, I'm going to ask you to do that. A lot of people have their camera off, which is totally cool. Been there. But if you do want to share your work, I just wrote words. But if you want to hold anything up to share with the group, you can. We're also going to put some words in the chat. Ooh. Yay, a lot of people were drawing. I think some people wrote poetry. It's really amazing. Digital art, awesome. Thank you so much. And we can just do some applause for everyone. Thanks so much for sharing. And I'd also love for you to put any words or thoughts in the chat. Some people have shared some things with me that are really beautiful, like memories about family and their history. I agree. Great work and great energy. Okay, and you can keep sharing. I'm going to share my screen again. Okay, so a lot of you hit the nail right on the head. I intentionally did not include Oxford's definition of the word resilience because they have it as the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties or toughness. And I didn't want to include that because the word resilience, along with self-care, has been weaponized against teachers throughout the pandemic. It's been used to reinforce a grind culture that is rooted in white supremacy and systemic racism. It's been used to say, suck it up and keep going no matter how burnt out you are. So that's not what we're talking about today. If you're here now, I can tell you that you're resilient. If you're watching this recording at a later date because you could not bear to do one more work-related thing on a Tuesday evening, congratulations, you're also resilient. And you're doing a great job taking care of yourself. We cannot build resilience without rest. We're surviving a pandemic, and as we do, we're developing skills that will serve us the rest of our lives. I want to give a little shout out to Lori Zellen, LCSW, whose article on resilience helped me put together some of these points. So resilience is something we develop throughout life that can help us strengthen our self-esteem, increase confidence in our ability to problem solve, better manage and tolerate uncomfortable emotions, feel less afraid of change and uncertainty, develop lasting coping skills, and stay flexible, focused, and productive in good times and bad. And this is not like a complete list. A lot of you put things in the chat that are so right on. So whether you see them on here or not. Okay. How and when does resilience show up in your classroom? I'd love to see your thoughts in the chat. And if you're not a teacher, how and when does resilience show up in your household or in your friend group? And I'm going to share with you how it shows up in my classroom in a little bit. I see asking for help in the chat is something that came up for Jen. thinking about resilience, that's a big one. Reflection, admitting to making mistakes, yes. Students showing optimism and reminding me to use it too, that's great. Identifying support systems. When you come back to a student after they've had more time to reflect on a question. Resilience shows up when we create. I love that. Continuing to try, understanding the power of yet. Yes, like I don't know that yet. Yeah. Smiling, accepting your faults. I'll let you keep reading on your own. There's so many good ones here. Stopping toxic optimism. Trying one more time. Yeah, thank you so much for your willingness to participate, everyone. So I want to share some artwork from LACMA's collection with you that I think you could use to introduce this topic in your classroom or in your home. When you're doing this with students or your family, I actually would not mention the word resilience before you share the first artwork. So I did that with you because that's what felt right for this presentation, but I wouldn't even mention that word before sharing it because you don't want your own thoughts or opinions or perspectives to influence your students' read or connection to the work. Really, you're going to let the students or people you're talking to lead the way. If they don't end up giving you an entry point to the subject of resilience, I'm going to give you a little way to nudge them in a moment. So the first piece I wanted to show you is Translated Vase by Isoo Kyung. This piece, so I'm going to ask you in a moment to just make some observations. So just take a moment to look at the work. Okay, so I did this with my students Monday. I first asked them, what do you see and what comes to mind? And I started doing sticky notes in my classroom because I realized like a lot of students are freaked out to share and more seem to participate when I let them respond in a way that they don't have to speak in front of the whole class. So Jamboard or chat, I'd love for you to share what you see. And this is literally just like what you're looking at, what you notice, what you see. And then what comes to mind could mean like, does it remind you of something? What might the artist be trying to say? How does it make you feel? And pages 4 and 5 of the Jamboard look like this, but you can also respond in the chat. Ooh, and I'm gonna have to speed things up. I think my technical difficulties got me going a little late. So let's see. A rock, yes, that is one of the things I heard from my students a lot, like a geode, a rock, an asteroid. Kintsugi, one of my students brought that up. Bumpy, yeah. Okay, one of my students said, I feel like it's a metaphor. So here's a quote that I shared with them after. The potter was trying to create the perfect piece each time, and he would discard even the ones with the slightest flaw. So I chose to create new forms from them because perhaps I don't believe completely in that kind of perfection. To me, a piece of broken ceramic finds another piece and they come to rely on one another. The cracks between them symbolize the wound. So when I put this up, I asked students to point out or to share with me what words stuck out to them. And I heard wound, perfection. Oh yeah, and Laura, I know Kintsugi's Japanese and this like a Japanese art form, and this artist is actually Korean. So after that, because my students didn't bring up anything that was going to lead us toward resilience, I asked if they've ever felt like this and when. And I told them they can interpret this question any way they want. So a lot of them just said no. I had one student say, I feel like the pottery sometimes discarded and the other healed with beautiful gold. And then more than half the class really connected to the potters that broke the work that wasn't perfect. So that's a great conversation to have too. Yeah, I see some people feel like this right now. So this is what I did with my students. This is how I would introduce this. And you can share this work like in bite-sized chunks. This doesn't all have to be on one day. This is another example by Lucida Hurtado called Untitled. And I would do that exact same activity, and I will do that exact same activity with this work. So I'm gonna kind of skip ahead a little, but I am providing the slides for you so you can always go back and look at these more. The next two artists I'm going to give you a little bit of background on because these artists really connect with our theme tonight. So you could determine whether or not you want to share more with your students. This piece here, lesson number 3 by E.J. Hill, is the third in a series of 3 lessons pieces. And I highly recommend you check out LACMA's Naima Keith's interview with E.J. Hill. In it, he says that these are things he wishes he would have been taught as a young person. And I think Hill's reflection on his experience of the public education system can spark really interesting conversations, especially with our older students. I started to get, so this is a quote from that video. I started to get signals from the world around me that better and improvement meant that I would have to distance myself further and further from the communities and people and neighborhoods that have formed me. A lot of the years of my life, I felt like I sort of twisted and bent and contorted and yielded to fit into situations or environments or institutions that weren't necessarily formed or designed with me in mind to thrive or survive even. As we continue this evening, I'd like us to consider how we can use what we learn here tonight to design an environment where all of our students can thrive, which is, I'm sure, a goal that we all already share. If you were not present at Flavia Zuñiga-West's amazing presentation on culturally responsive teaching last month, I highly recommend you check out the recording. Our students are not all experiencing this pandemic in the same way and will need different things from us. So it's really important to get to know them so we can better serve them. And I'll be sharing an activity with you shortly that can help do that. Okay, here's another piece, Untitled number 5 by Laura Aguilar. So one important thing to note about Aguilar, if you share this work with your students, is that in addition to making work about identity, community, and access, Aguilar made work about mental health, especially in relation to her identity as a queer Chicana artist. Okay, so when might you have these discussions? I have some ideas here and we'll brainstorm some more later. Morning meeting or homeroom. If your school has a restorative justice program, you could do it during an RJ circle or a dedicated community building time. You could introduce this as a writing or creative prompt. And we'll come back to this question. So I want to share with you a creative opportunity that I think everyone here can provide to their students, regardless of what age or subject you teach. I'd love to offer a kind of radical idea of giving your students an open-ended time to create that I think may enable you to provide a space for your students to begin to process the big events and big feelings going on in their lives right now, as well as practice resilience. And for some students, it might be the only place for them to process. So I'm going to tell you more about this in a moment, but as an example of what's possible with this time, this animation was created by an 8th grade artist in my class a couple of months into distance learning, so in 2020, entirely unprompted. And it goes kind of fast, so I'm going to read it out loud, but it's an animation with like a single figure for most of it. So it says, I've been thinking about quarantine. I mean, I'm stuck inside, distance learning, bored, can hardly breathe in this. I could think of a bunch more reasons, but you don't want to hear that. I should be more positive. For example, my family is safe. I can spend time with my dog. Let's fast forward a lot more hand movement. And I'll pause here for a second. Now look at all these positive things. So get to sleep in sometimes, family time, gas prices went down, my family's safe, I can stay in bed all day, I can rewatch old Disney movies. I really shouldn't be focusing on the negative. On the other hand, it took me an hour to write that list. Quarantine is very boring. I miss going outside, school, sports, and more. But then I realized something. Just because we're separated doesn't mean we can't stay connected. Try to find something to do during quarantine. We obviously aren't going anywhere anytime soon. And don't forget, stay safe. Okay, so why should this time to create be open-ended? When you provide opportunities for open-ended creation, you're sending the message that you trust your students and you know they're capable. When you provide a final product example, like if you're studying weather and you provide like some kind of rainy art, your students could lose out on the opportunity to create something with personal meaning. And when students begin to feel more comfortable and familiar with the practice, this often becomes a space for students to process what's going on in their life or share something really important with you in the classroom community, like that student did. And what I'm sharing is specific to art making, but this can also be a time where students do open-ended creative writing or movement or experiment in other creative pursuits. So this is a quote I come back to often by Dr. Caleb Rashad, who says, "Every child is an expert in their reality. Allow students to identify, describe, and ask questions about their lives, their experiences, and their communities, then follow them." Okay, so here are my tips for offering this open-ended time to your students. Provide students with traditional and non-traditional art materials. And this is not something you need to spend money on. Dig in your recycling bin. They love junk from the recycling bin. Ask friends and families for donations of old magazines or art supplies they're no longer using. Raid the general supply closet at your school for just like sticky notes and paper clips. And depending on the policies at your school, cell phones, tablets, and computers can also be used. And with choice comes a lot of mess. So an important tip is do not ever clean up after your students. With choice comes responsibility. And if cleanup is a total disaster, my recommendation is that you just offer less materials the next time until they show that they're able to manage it on their own, and then you can add in more things. Remove expectations for a finished product for public display. All artists begin in what's called the scribble phase, regardless of age. With time and regular practice, your students will discover their own preferences for materials and begin to create meaningful work. You will be surprised by how much your students have to say. Do your best to ensure that opportunities to create are accessible for all students. I have a PDF resource and an accompanying video I created for another presentation that you can check out on my website for free. So it just has tips on like adaptive tools and how to facilitate open-ended time for all your students. Use this time as an opportunity to celebrate mistakes and build resilience. So mistakes and challenges are inevitable. Teach students to use their mistakes. Ish and beautiful oops are great read alouds to share and reference as opportunities arise. Consider implementing a one piece of paper or surface per class guideline to guarantee opportunities to practice problem solving and resilience. So I have a one piece of paper per class rule in my classroom, whether you make a mistake or not. So I ask students to brainstorm what they can do if they make a mistake. And a lot of them, regardless of what grade they're in, remember beautiful oops, which we read in kindergarten, and share ideas from that. Okay, so I want to share a poem with you before the last tip called An Invitation to Brave Space by Mickey Scott Bay Jones. It says, "Together we will create brave space because there is no such thing as a safe space. We exist in the real world. We all carry scars, and we have all caused wounds in this space. We seek to turn down the volume of the outside world. We amplify voices that fight to be heard elsewhere. We call each other to more truth and love. We have the right to start somewhere and continue to grow. We have the responsibility to examine what we think we know. We will not be perfect. It will not always be what we wish it to be, but it will be our brave space together, and we will work side by side. And I think maybe the whiteboard feature's turned on because I think someone's drawing on the screen right now. Can everyone see that, or is it just me? No? Okay. Provide opportunities for students to share their work in small and whole group settings, but do not require it. So sharing work can strengthen your classroom community, but students should never be required to share something. They may have made something deeply personal or simply feel self-conscious, but working to create a brave space, creating those classroom agreements can help with that. Okay, so I want to share some more examples of student work, and then we're going to do an activity together that we might do a shorter time than I planned. So you're going to see a lot of art that looks like this. When you introduce this practice, you'll see scribbles, stream of consciousness, lots of unicorns, depending on what grade you teach. Sometimes your creative time can fall after a read aloud or class discussion that kind of nudges students in a certain direction, but they shouldn't be required to make anything related. Many will. Eventually, you'll start to see art like this. So art students make about issues that are important to them. The ideas for these pieces and the pieces themselves are entirely student generated. This one says, have hope, be safe, be kind, Black Lives Matter, and that's by a third grade student. And then this one over here is an anti-bullying poster that one of my sixth graders made. Here are a couple more examples. This one says, you should smile more, and it's attributed to Every Man Ever. It's by an 8th grade student. And inevitably, resilience will come up. When your students start to dream up ideas for art that's about things that are really important to them, when they create sketches or plans to create this work, the work usually won't turn out as expected. They'll run into challenges, they'll make mistakes. And what's really cool is when the process of creating the work changes the meaning of the artwork. So this piece began as a piece about deforestation, and the student wanted to use cement to create these hands that would be holding a plant. And we were distance learning at this time. So she was doing this at home, and she'd never used cement before. And her mom sent me a picture partway through her process of just broken hands. And she had like 3 sets of broken hands. And she finally ended up bandaging the hands and spray painting everything. And the piece kind of became a piece about resilience and like putting things back together and healing. So, you know, that's what's possible. Cool. We don't have time for this, but if you feel like you'd need to justify this to like administrators or like a team, you can come back to these stats, which is just some data on why this is really important. Okay, so we're gonna try and do maybe like a 10-minute breakout room. And we have the breakout rooms broken down by grade level and subject. We also have an option for non-teachers, or you can choose your own adventure if you're not a teacher. So I'd love for everyone to kind of come up with a game plan so that you can implement this in your classroom or with your family soon. You could even come up with a date and commit to your group. And I'm hoping that working through some of this now allows you to implement this without spending any of your valuable prep time on it. So I have this on the Jamboard. Maybe someone could pull up a Google Doc if you can't access the Jamboard. I also have one that's more bare than the last one. On the Jamboard, it says that this is a template. So you'll make a copy, and I have an image there that shows you how to make a copy. And then you'll delete this text box and this photo, and then you can type into it or add sticky notes with your group. We'd love for there to be 5 or 6 people in each group. So if you are in a room that only has like 1 or 2 people, you might go join a different room, and it's okay if there are a few more than 5 or 6 people. At the end, we're going to do some shares on the mic and in the chat and ask questions, and that'll be it. But let's maybe do like 9 minutes, which will go by very fast. You can choose your own breakout room. If you are unable to do that because you're not on the latest version of Zoom, you can let us know and we can put you in a breakout room. If you would like to stay in touch, you can find me on Instagram at Sydney Teaching Art. You can also connect with me on the Adding Voices Instagram. I have those free resources I mentioned and a lot more at my website. And then you can also check out the Adding Voices website as well. I'm happy to jam if you want to reach out to me.